Hello there. I hope everyone's had a great week. I know it's been a little tough for some folks. In Southern California, we had some flash floods as a result of some thunderstorms that went through. I know the various parts of U.S. There's some heat. There's a lot of heavy rainfall on the East Coast. Nevertheless, I hope you've survived and that you're doing well. This week, I'd like to cover the same topics as usual, talk about what I was able to accomplish this past week, some of the things that I learned, some setbacks that I also had, and then talk about the plans for the coming week. Before I jump into that, though, I wanted to talk about something else that I think is of great benefit for people who are starting out their new business. Specifically, that's around setting up a peer support group. What I refer to as a business accountability group. This is top of mind for me today because I have my twice monthly meeting phone call this afternoon with my group. Mainly, I want to be able to cover essentially what's the benefit of it, why set it up, what you should be looking for, and some of the things that I've already picked up as a result of having this group. So let's jump into it. So what is this business accountability group or the peer support group that I'm referring to? The idea here is that you essentially bring on folks who may be pursuing something similar but not exactly the same, who may be experiencing some of the pains of a startup but who are able to share some of those lessons. Maybe folks who have also had some experience, significant experience in areas where you lack that experience. And in my case, when I started out iEngineer a number of years back, I went at it alone. And I originally had some contracts. There was some spillover, and I got some other consultants to come in and take care of that work. But for the most part, I didn't do any business development. No sales or marketing either. In essence, it was that initial contract that I got, and then subsequent to that, it was a word of mouth. The same customer wanted some more work. They recommended me to another customer who was seeking out a software development and business consulting group, and it kept on going like that for quite some time. But this time around, I knew that I needed help with business development, with marketing and sales activities, lead generation, and I certainly didn't have it. I've had experience working in the past decade for certain companies where I'm a supporting role, even during the pre-sale stage for sales staff, but I wasn't actually going out there and trying to set up new relationships or cultivating the existing ones, doing a lot of that hunting that's typically referred to in sales. So I knew I needed help. And it's beyond the use of, for example, a CPA, some of the skills you don't have or don't even want to have, or anything to do with legal matters within an organization. It's more involved with how do you fill the sales pipeline, right? So I sought out to put together this group where I was able to get a couple of things out. One, fill that gap in my skill set. And also bounce ideas off of people who've had experience in business development, sales, marketing, and even in different industries where I could get ideas from folks who have worked different industries where I have had zero experience. I figured there could be some parallels, and in fact, it would lead to some fresh ideas. So when I sought out folks for this, I looked for those skill sets or those experiences. And in fact, the three of us who are currently meeting on a regular basis, one of the gentlemen, his name is Greg, he's had significant experience in technology, hardware and software, in business development and sales and marketing. The other gentleman has had significant experience in developing chemicals. So this is for cleanups, for example, for spills like gas spills in gas stations or oil or other chemicals that may have spilled, and essentially having something that neutralizes those chemicals. But he's had experience developing the products as well as being involved in a sales cycle in a similar manner as I was. But the idea there was for me to be able to get ideas from other industries and then bring it into what I'm doing with ValTeo Tech. So we've been meeting on a regular basis, and as a matter of fact, we started out initially meeting every 5 to 6 weeks. We figured that was sufficient just to get things started, but soon we realized, well, we really need to meet a little bit more regularly. We're hitting some barriers, and we'd like to be able to at least bounce ideas off of each other. So we came up with a rigor of still meeting face-to-face every 5 to 6 weeks. There's a lot of value to that. But nevertheless, filling that gap in between with a call every other week. That way we can check in, even if it's not a call, if we can't all make it, at least fire off an email and say, here are the things that I had planned on working on, here's what I was able to accomplish, and I need help in this area. I'm blocked. I don't know how to tackle it, or I have some ideas. I need your input, guys. Something along those lines. And I'll tell you that the value for me has been tremendous, because there have been instances where I've been hesitant about taking certain steps. Should I be making an offering of a certain type of package or certain type of pricing? Should I be looking at some groups that are out there for helping freelancers find work? Should I be flying out to meet up with a particular customer? And essentially they were able to set me straight and say, hey, why aren't you doing this? What have you learned from these particular mistakes? And made me think further through some of those lessons learned and crystallize what the next steps really should be for me as well. Getting some ideas about what I should be doing different than what I've been doing in the past. So I highly recommend it. I would recommend that you meet fairly regularly. So don't push it off to once every quarter or whatnot that you would typically reserve, for example, for board of advisors. But I'd say meet every couple of weeks, at least once a month. And it would be good to be able to have some folks who are local and maybe even some folks who are not local. That's something that I've been thinking about, adding on folks who are across the nation who can potentially join this group. Now, mind you also want to keep it small. If you make it too large, then it becomes too long of a meeting or a discussion for people to get something meaningful. So you have to be very selective and probably think about no more than 3 to 5 people within your group. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. And the next one was progress on what I've been working on. I was planning on working on a lot of the marketing and the educational material that I would use to go after the mid-market customers. So I made some progress there, not as much as I would have liked. The challenge was I began to focus on getting leads so far as making some of the presentations as opposed to developing the content itself, and that was fruitful. And I was able to also refine at least the topics that I want to be able to cover during these sessions, and I actually wrote a blog about it on ValTeo's website. But the topics revolve around what is digital transaction management, what are some of the success metrics that you have to select for planning a DTM rollout, how to determine the maturity level of an organization, a DTM maturity level, and then based on that maturity level, have certain steps on what you need to do next to get yourself to the next maturity level. And then how to prioritize use cases, what metrics to use essentially, and how to use those metrics to prioritize the use cases, and then how to deploy and iterate to continue to increase the adoption within an organization. So all of those have been refined. It's actually been placed on the ValTeo Tech blog at this point. I covered the first 2 topics in the latest blog, and I'll continue to post there as well as use that same content to build the presentations that I need to for the local business groups. So the other progress was, of course, connecting with one of my alma maters. I was able to speak with head of recruiting at one of my alma maters, Chapman University, and as a result of that, we were able to determine that, yes, in fact, this is a topic that a lot of the students, the business school students, whether it is the part-time MBAs or the executive MBAs, they're topics that they would be interested in. So I'm following up with that. We're planning on meeting up again with the dean and the associate dean to determine essentially when it would make sense to go in, likely sometime in September, and then where we would make this presentation, whether it's during one of the strategy classes that they have or for an evening discussion session with a smaller group. We'll see. As far as progress on larger deals, I actually made a pretty good progress on one of the deals. We were talking about making the business case for how we're planning on delivering value for that particular customer. So we found out what some of the metrics are that they should be looking at. It tied in very well with a blog post that I had earlier in the week. And then I thought about actually a new approach for smaller deals. So this is something that I wasn't necessarily considering, but I've been toying with. So I figured I'd test the waters, if you would. And that the idea here is that I get a lot of these micro deals. These are a few hours, 2, 3, 4, 5 hour engagements. And they would be directly related to DTM, DocuSign, digital transformation, things along those lines, where I'd be able to use it as a means of not necessarily generating revenue, though of course there will be some revenue coming in, but really to get the word out about ValTeo Tech and what we do. So it would be another channel for that biz dev and sales and marketing, where just a proliferation of the number of engagements in and of itself can be used to support the larger deals that I would be going after as well, and would be planting a seed with potentially within those organizations to see if they have other needs that they want to pursue after that initial engagement that we would have with them. So I completed my profile on GLG. I looked at a couple other organizations similar to it where they essentially have references or experts who would come in and speak with investors or whatnot who are doing research within a particular industry. I also went after Freelancer and Upwork, a couple of sites for freelancers. I have mixed feelings about those two, only because I think based on what I saw, the price range for a lot of those engagements are quite low, and also the needs are not such that they would necessarily help with the bigger cause of getting the name out there. It's still something I'm going to toy with, and we'll see what type of progress I'll make with it. I'll probably place bids nevertheless on some of those engagements just to see if there's any interest within those sites, within the markets that they particularly address. As far as next couple of weeks are concerned, so for next week, I'm actually taking the week off. This is a summer vacation that we had planned at the end of last year with the family, so I'm planning on taking some time off and recharging, especially because they've been as supportive as they have been. I'd like to be able to spend some time with them. And there is another factor. You notice I said some time off. I'm still trying to set up some meetings and calls, as well as work on a number of requests that I have to push a couple of deals across. So I'll be taking those calls and meetings in my off times with the family. If they happen, great. If they don't, that's okay. We'll spill over into the following week. And then when I get back for the week of the 14th, then I will continue with building those marketing material and continue to reach out to some of the local business groups and some of my other alma maters for their business school to see if I can arrange for making the presentations that I have in mind starting in mid to late September. Now, because I'm taking the week off next week, of course, there won't be a blog post or video next week either. With that, I bid you guys farewell. I hope you have a great couple of weeks and talk to you then. Take care. Bye.